Let's talk about something that isn't really new, but I think it requires a video because I want folks to understand where I'm coming from with this. Changing the race, ethnicity, and so forth of a pre-established character is some of the wackest shit ever, but let me explain. Because I'm always talking about comics, I'm going to use them as an example and a main reference in the point that I'm making, but it certainly can apply to other places. I can't reiterate enough that I'm specifically talking about the changing of a pre-established character. With comics, we have a visual reference as well as the narratives themselves. So yes, it's fiction, I get it, but it isn't just like a straight novel with no visual. And some comic book characters have existed for so long and they become iconic, but with this obsession with representation and diversity, writers have taken some pre-established characters and changed them, and in most cases, it's so randomized that it's obvious what their intention is. Sometimes they just are pretty open about that. We've also seen in this sort of live action depictions of these characters. For example, like some of them were white in the comics, but the same character becomes black or Hispanic or whatever in the live action. Some people actually push for this mess and become so appeased by it, and well, that's why they do it. And in one of my videos, I brought up the fact that it was a little odd, even though I didn't make a big deal of it, that Jimmy Olsen, who was a bit of a frail ginger in the comics, was some tall black man in the Supergirl TV show. There was a guy that was like, how can you say that? That's weird. How can you be upset at us being represented? And by us, he means black people. And of course, he called me a coon for taking such position. This is textbook cognitive dissonance. Now, me personally, as a black person, I'm more than comfortable with myself, so much so that I know that there's a lot more to me as an individual than simply being a black person. And my ability to enjoy a comic is not determined by whether or not the person looks like me. So this is the harsh reality. Writers are so lazy that they will take a pre-established character, already developed character, and change their background because they know you are so easily swayed, and they are betting on that as a fact. And you will drool over it. So actually, this is tokenism, which is why I laugh at the idea that someone could refer to me as some fake black guy for having this position. You're the one that's so easily appeased and have allowed these people to simply throw you a bone because you're so controlled by your emotions and your obsessions with race, sexuality, gender, and so forth. On a personal tip, certainly in my activism, I've always sought to empower people to be so comfortable with themselves that they don't even need to look for this sort of garbage or this representation, being so collectivist that they take how they look like it's a monolith. But I'm not an idiot. I understand the value of imagery, but throwing some token in there for diversity efforts is not only lazy, but can be considered a little bit insulting. Some of these characters have existed for multiple decades and have gained a following, and rather than creating another character, these fools would much rather change him or her up and piggyback off of the success. This is such an important notion because these one-trick ponies confuse calling this out as racism, sexism, or homophobia. Oh, you don't like that we've now made a black version of this character? You're a racist. No, you dipstick. The same would apply if they up and made Static or Black Panther or some Asian guy. Static is probably my favorite comic book character because I was a kid when he was first introduced, and I was only like 10 years old when the Static Shock show was, being shown on TV. Now, as an adult, I can especially appreciate how this character, exists, how it's written, even in some of the addressing of the social issues. That's all I'm asking. Those are my expectations. If you want someone to be black, gay, female, whatever, use your noggin and come up with someone interesting that people can fall in love with. And some of these characters aren't going to catch on. Hell, think of all the white male characters that no one gives a damn about. But you see this tension between fans of comics over these diversity efforts, and this is one of the reasons why. And when you make these characters, don't make them being black or gay or whatever their main thing. With most of the white male characters, for example, there's hardly ever any mention of their race, and this allows them to focus on developing the characters and coming up with intriguing arcs. Really, that's all they have going for them. The approach shouldn't be any different with the other characters. You make it so obvious that you're trying to throw these bones when you dwell on their race, ethnicity, sexual preference, gender, whatever. This is one of my beefs with even the non-comic book characters. It seems every predominantly black casted show or movie has to have some sort of black struggle, as if that's all there is to being black. It's so lazy and has been done 6 million times, and people take these comic book characters and do the same. Oh, female character? She has to address the struggle of women. Gay character has to deal with some conflict regarding her sexuality. Then these fools get upset when we say this is unappealing and boring because it has been done 6 million times. I get that there are some exceptions, and dare I say nuance. God, I hate that word. Some of these characters fill a role that is centered around a suit. As an example, you have different characters that have been Batman, and different characters have worn the suits of Batman. But we all know the Batman is white as hell, and that's Bruce Wayne. That's the iconic Batman. So if you up and depicted a black Batman, you're going to get some backlash. And yeah, some characters have been written decently that are of different races and have suited up in the suit of a hero or a version of that hero. One of the more obvious is Miles Morales as Spider-Man. Now, most of these types of efforts are forced, corny, and lazy, but at least Miles Morales has his own background. This is far better than just simply making Peter Parker a black guy. But Miles is an exception, make no mistake, and it will always be preferable to have another character with his own unique skill set, unique art, stop being lazy, and taking developed characters and making them of different descent for the sake of representation and diversity. I don't care in what timeline you make it, it'll forever be whack. And it's stupid because there's so many examples in which people have thoroughly enjoyed non-white male characters in the comic realm, especially when they hit live action films. Blade, he's one of the most kick-ass characters ever, and we know Black Panther is one of the OGs. If the writers made these characters white and gay, I'd have some problems. It's totally lazy and totally unnecessary. And in all honesty, if you feel the need for representation of a person, background, or what have you, there's your incentive right there to actually write one. DC, Marvel, Independent, doesn't matter. Write characters with interesting arcs. Hell, once it's done, hit me up and I'll check it out. But if you think that you're not going to get pushback for changing the race of a character, you're naive. If you respond to that pushback along with false claims of racism, well, you're just as lazy as the writers who threw you the bone of tokenism.